Baik, selamat siang semuanya. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone here is quite full. You had a pretty good break. And we're going to start with our second panel sessions for today, which is concerning a very complex but urgent issue that we in the academia also realize, also know about the attractiveness of the accounting professions, which obviously will affect everyone, including Bapak Ibu here in the academia as the educator. So let me start by introducing our great panel today, which consists, obviously, we've heard from Bruce and Tanya before. So maybe I'll just create some short introductions for Bruce. Again, Bruce is currently the principal of accounting educations at IFAC, but he has experience in South Africa in the audit and assurance sector in the PwC, as well as in the Auditor General of South Africa. And Bruce has joined IFAC in mid-2021 and currently as the IFAC Head of Accountancy Educations. And we also have Tanya here. Tanya is the IFAC Regional Manager responsible for Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe region. So Tanya is responsible for helping IFAC's member organization and other professional accountancy organization in adopting and implementing international standard and best practices. We also have here representing Indonesia, Bu Lindawati Gani, which is unique because Ibu Linda also representing Indonesia Chartered Accountant Association, or IAI, as a member of IAI National Councils for 2022 until 2026. Bulinda is also a member of Professional Accountant in Business Advisory Group, which is one of the advisory group in IFAC since January 2023, and also member of the Chartered Council member of Chartered Accountant Worldwide since 2022. So Bulinda will hopefully can bring the Indonesian as well as global perspective for today. We also have our guests today from the industry, firstly representing the audit and assurance industry, Bapak Jumadi. So Bapak Jumadi is also a member of IAI National Councils from 2022 until 2026, as well as assurance partner at PwC Indonesia and currently the territory assurance leader at the PwC Indonesia. We also have from the regulator, Pak Ari Wibowo. So Pak Ari Wibowo representing the regulator of financial professions in Indonesia. So Pak Ari is the head of divisions for financial profession development, Center for Financial Professions Supervisory in Ministry of Finance. And also we have Pak Yudi, which is currently is the IAI for Public Sector Accountant Compartment Vice Chair in the compartment, and also the heads of Public Relations and International Cooperations Bureau at BPK, which is Supreme Audit Agency in Indonesia. And we also have Pak Jackie here. So Pak Jackie is again a member of the IAI Professional Accountant in Business Compartment, but also the chairpersons for Philip Kotler Center for ASEAN Marketing Foundation, so representing the businesses in these sessions today. And we have around 120 to 150 minutes for great discussions today. You see all of the people that we have in front for the great panel. I would like to start our session today with probably short presentations, around 20 minutes by Bruce and Tanya. I would like to invite Bruce and Tanya to have a short presentation about the global challenges in regard to the attractiveness and accessibility of the accounting professions. Bruce and Tanya, time is yours.
Okay, I think we have some slides ready for you for this segment of the afternoon. So as those are being pulled up, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for organizing this event. And thus far, the morning has definitely been very engaging and lots of learning. And so I'm extremely hopeful for the second half. So thank you again so much. And so just want to say that we at IFAC are very committed to presenting accountancy as a profession rooted in strong ethics and values, showcasing its crucial role in supporting economies, the environment, and society at large. So if we go to our next slide, we'll delve deeper into this. So our next slide is going to talk about the challenges that we at IFAC have been hearing. So around the world, we are hearing IFAC organizations express concern about whether there will be enough accountants to meet future demand from the market. This raises questions about potential impacts of such shortages. We can address this concern through three main approaches. So one, attracting talent, accessibility for talent, and then retention of talent. So looking a little deeper at attracting talent, we really need to shift the public perception of accounting from routine number crunching to a field ripe with innovative thinkers, crucial for our profession's evolution. And we heard much of this same sentiment earlier this morning. When we talk about accessibility for talent, we really need to think through, are there unnecessary barriers like stringent education and certification demands that deter talented individuals, especially those from diverse or underprivileged backgrounds? And then thirdly, looking at retention of talent, high turnover rates that are driven by work-life balance issues, inadequate compensation, and excessive regulation. These pose significant challenges. So this not only affects the auditing sector, but also threatens our ability to uphold high professional standards. So addressing these challenges is critical to maintaining the profession's integrity and ensuring its continued importance in the global economy. So if we look at our next slide, what we did in preparing for today, we learned that many in Indonesia see the accountancy profession as a sunset profession. But what if this perspective is misplaced? What if instead we are a sunrise profession, one whose greatest opportunities and achievements lie ahead? Imagine accountancy not as a field in decline, but as one poised for renewal and growth. The profession is evolving, driven by technological advancements and global financial shifts. Today's accountants are much more than financial record keepers. They are strategic advisors and critical decision makers who can guide sustainable practices, leverage digital finance, and utilize big data. So, can we tell this story? Absolutely. It's time to change the narrative, to show that accountancy is not fading, but thriving, with its most exciting chapters yet to be written. This new dawn for accountancy is all about embracing the opportunities that await. So if we go to our next slide, we want to say that despite its recognized value, accounting is often misunderstood due to external narratives, from media portrayals to global discussions like the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report. These perspectives sometimes and somewhat overlook the significant achievements and societal impacts of accountants. So key attributes of our profession that are often unseen include that it is a force for good. Accountants foster transparency, ethical standards, positively impacting society. Also, guaranteed relevance. Accountancy is essential in all economic conditions, acting as the backbone of financial operations. And there are endless possibilities. From forensic accounting to strategic financial advisory, the field offers diverse career paths based on solid financial expertise. And also, it's inclusive and engaging. We pride ourselves on diversity and inclusivity, welcoming varied backgrounds and skills. And then also technology forward, something that was also brought up in our earlier discussions. We lead in adopting technologies like AI and blockchain to enhance financial reporting. So as we look to these attributes, it becomes clear that our profession does not just keep pace with change, but it actually drives it. So our next slide, I just wanted to highlight an example from the Philippine Institute of Public Certified Accountants, PICPA. And this really exemplifies the accounting profession is evolving beyond traditional roles. So they also call their program Beyond the Numbers. And we have seen this. We saw this as we are coming into the room today. And I think it's very true to the narrative that we want to shape for the accounting profession. So in the Philippines, this initiative has transformed how accountants are seen, shifting the stereotype of accountants to mere number crunchers, to dynamic contributors in various fields, including politics and social responsibility. So actually, during the COVID-19 pandemic, PICPA showcased the adaptability and innovative spirit of accountants, embracing new technologies and tackling significant changes. For the fiscal year 2023 to 2024, PICPA's 10-point agenda focuses on professional growth, digital innovation, community involvement, redefining the role of accountants in society, and highlighting their potential, broader, impactful contributions. So as we look at our next slide, I think this is a very powerful statement. Educators are best placed to tell this story. Again, a theme that we discussed in our earlier discussions this morning. Educators play a crucial role in shaping aspiring accountants, which gives us an opportunity to evaluate our educational frameworks. Are we fully capturing the vibrant and dynamic nature of the accounting profession? Together, we can explore how to integrate broader perspectives beyond traditional bookkeeping, ensuring that our curriculum reflects the full scope and possibilities of our field. Accounting should be preserved and presented as the language of business, capable of unlocking diverse opportunities and practical applications. For example, discussing how to measure a company's carbon offsets can illustrate the relevance of data analytics in sustainability and corporate governance. So it is essential to collaborate with educational institutions to develop an engaging, forward-looking curriculum that aligns with professional exams, yet goes beyond and depicts accounting as a gateway to roles ranging from strategic advisors to sustainability champions. By updating our educational narrative, we can position accounting as a modern profession ready to empower students to shape and lead the business world. Our next slide here talks about a two-pager. Professor Otama talked about it in his presentation, where we have created this two-pager to help professional accountancy organizations and firms address key challenges facing the global accountancy profession. And so this resource is designed to foster discussions and share insights and promote collaborative efforts for positive changes. And again, for more detailed information, we encourage you to visit the IFAC Attractiveness of the Profession page, where you can find this and other resources relevant to what we are discussing today. So I'm going to now hand over to Bruce, and he will discuss 3 strategic approaches to enhance accountancy education. So over to you.
Thanks, Tanya. And to be honest, the easiest way to find some of these resources we're referring to is actually not going to the IFAC website, it's starting at Google. So if we've spoken about attractiveness of the profession, just search IFAC, attractiveness of the profession, you'll find this page with all these resources very quickly. So I'm going to share just three parts, and this is actually in that 2-pager that Tanya just referred to, 3 responses for accountancy education to respond to some of the challenges around attractiveness of the profession. There's the elements around branding and shifting the perceptions. That's sometimes a bit hard for education. There's an aspect we can deal with that I'll talk about, but generally that might be for other people to support on. But the educator community, these are 3 of the key responses I think we need to be thinking about. And these, I want to caution, not all of these an individual educator can change. But these are the types of messages we're giving to our members, and it's based on what we're hearing as best practice emerging around the world. So three responses. Number 1, reach potential accountants earlier. So we can talk a bit about high school engagement, high school education, and so on. 2, create additional pathways, that's different pathways into membership in the profession. And then rethink our education programs and qualification requirements. So if we go to the next slide. So reaching potential accountants earlier. And there's a few ways we can do this, but this is really about trying to position the profession as a profession that is considered as a great option for any young person. So there are, if you talk to, say, a 10-year-old, my son is 10 years old, it's unlikely they're going to be telling you, what do they want to be when they grow up. They're probably not going to say an accountant because they probably don't know what it is. My son wants to be a pilot. He understands what a pilot is because he's been in a plane, he's seen it, he watches the planes. But does he understand what an accountant does? There's a huge opportunity to enhance our school engagement, and it can go even as young as 10 years old. But just a couple of thoughts there is really around how, as a profession, we represent ourselves when there's opportunities to go talk to high school students. Now, this can include, is not just for the professional body to do, but it's really for all professional accountants and all accountancy educators to think about how you might be a part of doing outreach within schools in your community to tell the proper story about the profession, the impact we have, the public interest, and the opportunities that are offered by our profession. Secondly, around reaching potential accountants earlier is about better school curricula. So I know here in Indonesia, there are some high school students who will get exposed to accounting at school, but the same as what we see around the world, that tends to be fairly rudimentary bookkeeping type accounting. That probably is not very reflective of what bookkeeping looks like today, let alone what accounting as a wider profession is. There's a huge opportunity to use these school curricula to get them adapted to drive change so that they tell the story of the profession. Yes, fine, learn some of the basics of debits and credits and bookkeeping, but equally learn about the role of the profession, learn about its opportunities, learn about how we support business, how we support economic growth, learn about the value of what accountants do. That can be embedded into these curriculums. And then thirdly, and it's related to this, but even when students decide to take accounting as a major, what is their first experience of accounting? And I see at the back there, we've got a banner about basic financial accounting course. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your introductory courses on accounting, the first accounting course that a student comes across. Is it your best course? Or is it the one that you give to the new educator, new academic who's just joined the staff? And well, let's give them the easy stuff to teach. We would suggest that you should put your best lecturers, your best teachers into the foundation level classes. Make sure that we have people in the classroom who can make the students excited about accounting. And that can include, we can just stay on that previous slide, please. That can include being better at teaching just the basics of debits and credits. And there's some amazing curricula, modern curricula that make that more engaging and interesting. But again, it's about, can we teach the why of our profession? Surely the why is part of the fundamentals of accounting. Debits and credits is the language. But why even have debits and credits? Should we not be convincing students of that first? And then perhaps we'll see less drop off because they say, wow, accounting is actually pretty boring, or accounting is just about the numbers. What if our foundational courses were not just about the numbers? Sustainability, clearly, opportunity to integrate it even from that principles foundation level when we teach. And then other things that we can do there, of course, embedding technology and giving that business context to what we do, and ultimately using it as a bit of a marketing tool. You have a captive audience of students, same in high school for the curriculum that's taught there. These students sit in class and listen to perspectives on the profession. They're a captive audience. Let's make the most of that. So if we move to the next slide, I just want to share a couple of examples that we've seen around the world of how different accounting organizations are doing this, doing school engagement, for example. This is from Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. They've developed a set of personas, and this is not even all of the ones they have, but some really great examples that take different personas, different roles that accountants take on. So, what would you normally think of it as an accountant as? Or maybe you might say CFO, financial manager, auditor. But what if you said that an accountant can be a crime fighter, a smart farmer, a skilled negotiator, a financial bodyguard, a business trailblazer, and the list goes on over there. They've got more examples of this. And they have these cards that they share with students, and it allows them to see the different opportunities that are presented by the profession and how accountants can play these different roles. Again, telling the story better about what's possible in a career in accounting. So it's a great example from CAA-NZ. If we go to the next slide, and this is an example that we've been learning about from Singapore, where they have this concept that even if you're in high school, you can become a member of the institute. And do you know what your fee is if you want to be a high school student who's a member of the institute? 0. You become a member, you get access to training, you get access to networking opportunities, you get invited to special events, all kinds of things, but you're still in high school. But you already are getting a positive experience in the profession. And what they expect is that this is a way to bring young people in at an early stage into the profession, and then start to, hopefully some of them will choose to pursue it long term. So some amazing stories already coming out of there. And I know there's some movement here in Indonesia as well around student members. And then on to the next slide. So just to wrap up this section, Tanya had that slide that said educators are best placed to tell the story. And I want to add to that and say inspiring teachers lead to inspired students. So let's make sure that as educators, we go into the classroom as inspired as possible. Let's put the best people in front of our younger audiences in the classroom, and let's inspire them to want to be accountants who can take on these many amazing public interest roles we have. Move on to the next slide. And I want to get into the second part of this, the pathways, right? How do we create additional pathways into the profession? Just a few thoughts on this. I'm gonna talk about entrance points, then actually pathways, and then exit points. So entry points, the entry requirements to come into a professional qualification, pathways, what your process might be through, and exit points. Do you only exit if you complete everything, or could you go halfway and get some kind of recognition for that? So if we can move to the next slide. And this slide is coming from our education standards. I told you about IES-1 earlier today. IES-1, we basically say to our member bodies exactly what you see on the screen. IFAC member bodies shall specify educational entry requirements for their professional accounting education programs. And here's the important part that's coming. Those entry requirements must allow entrance only to those with a reasonable chance of successfully completing the program. So reasonable chance of success while not representing excessive barriers to entry. So there's two sides to this. Don't make your entrance requirements so low that anybody comes in, but most of them fail. But don't make it so high that you exclude talented people who could have actually successfully completed the program. And we've got to weigh up these two things. We've got to weigh that up in the professional qualification. We've got to weigh that up in our university programs. We move to the next slide. And to be clear, that there's no single requirement. We don't follow a rules-based approach on this. So just to share with you an example of where this is happening around the world, ACCA has an amazing approach to this. They have a variety of entry points. So essentially, each of those columns that you see there is a different point. You can enter into their program straight out of school. You can enter if you've got a certain, like an undergraduate degree. You can enter if you've got a more advanced degree. And you can enter if you're even further ahead. So there are various pathways in. You don't necessarily have to study an accounting degree. You can come in from a different path, from a different discipline. All that changes is what the requirements are. So you might take some extra modules or you might get some credits. But there are many different ways to get into the program. So this is the idea of different entry points, and it also creates different pathways. I want to talk about pathways on the next slide. This is an example from AICPA, which is most of us associate with America, but it's actually an international organization now, AICPA. The CPA qualification, which is predominantly in the US, they've just changed their overall curriculum. And essentially what they've done is to move away from a one-size-fits-all approach and said, okay, what's the common core that every accountant should know? And then let's offer electives where you could choose an area where you want to focus more. All of them lead to a CPA designation, but obviously some of those individuals will be more experts in tax, some will be more experts in information systems controls, some will be more business focused. So really interesting way that you give flexibility to a student, different pathways, so that they have the opportunity to choose. The final comment, I haven't spoken about exit points in detail, and I won't go too much into this, but essentially the idea there is, again, is it realistic to say, go on a 7-year journey, and if you fail, you get nothing? What about if along the way, there's different stop-off points where you could become an accounting technician, or you could get some other designation that can lead to a meaningful and fulfilling career? If we go on to the next slide, this is the key message from this part of the presentation, which is, flexibility is much better than one size fits all. So I recognize there's regulations, there's qualification frameworks and so on in countries, there's limits to what can be done. To the extent you can build flexibility into the way you deliver curricula at university, in the way professional bodies deliver qualifications, you are probably going to appeal to a wider audience. And so the final part of the presentation is one that's probably the most important for me. If we move to the next slide. And that is that I think we need to rethink education programs and qualification requirements. So next slide, please. So we need to be willing to rethink our programs and rethink the way the qualification requirements. We should not rethink the quality or the level of competence. That's not the discussion here. Same level of competence that we want. But the way to get there can change. So again, do we give students a reasonable chance of success? And do we exclude some competent students because maybe the program is too expensive to do? They don't have access because of their social background, socioeconomic level. Is the program too long? Think of somebody who's, I don't know, maybe a single mom trying to make ends meet, wants to study, can't commit to a 7-year program. And are our exams, frankly, too hard sometimes? Do we bring in too much stress into the examination process that means a competent person who's not a good exam taker gets excluded? So I think we need to think very seriously about these things and consider different options. On the next slide, I just want to tell you a brief story from my home country of South Africa and the institute that I'm a member of, SACA, the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. They've taken a look at this issue of access and making sure that people from previously disadvantaged backgrounds can have access to a high-quality accountancy education qualification. But they recognize that to do that, it's not just about the money. So this is a bursary scheme which pools funding from a number of sources. That's another story for another day. But funds the students to come into this program who come from backgrounds where they wouldn't normally be able to. But they know that that student probably comes from a family where no one has a university degree. No one's ever been to university. Very often from a rural area with limited access to any of the things that we might take for granted in the city. And so what they've done with this program is to say, We will pay for funding, but we will for the studies, for the tuition fees, but we will also give wraparound support to these students. So they give them lots of coaching and mentoring. They give them access to free lecturing, additional lecturing from some of the best lecturers in the country. They support them in the most basic things about just figuring out what clothes you wear when you go to start your first job, interviewing techniques, you name it. Anything they can do to support these students and to support them to ultimately pass the exams and become chartered accountants in South Africa. So another really just great example of how, as a profession, we can support students to get through the program. So this is the end of my presentation. There's one more slide, though, which is really what I want to leave as a thought with you and as a challenge. And this is something I'm very passionate about. When we look at a student who's failed, who doesn't pass our exams, do we say, oh, they didn't work hard enough, or they were lazy, or they, clearly didn't meet our criteria? Or do we ask the question, what did we do wrong? As educators, as a support system, as a profession, what did we do wrong? If a student enters into our program and they have a reasonable chance of success, and then they still don't succeed, perhaps something went wrong on their side, but perhaps more likely something went wrong on our side. So is there more we can do to work to help us, our aspiring professional accountants, to reach the level of competence we need, rather than excluding those who maybe struggle a little bit along the way? So that's some thoughts from us. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Bruce and Tanya, for the excellent presentations. We see that this is some of the pressing issue, but we can also see from perspective of opportunity, as Tanya said, is it a sunset or is it a sunrise, right? Sunrise professions. I would like to invite Bulinda here, now representing the IFAC Professional Accountant in Business Advisory Group, which is the group established by IFAC to ensure that accountants meet the future needs of businesses and public sector. Would you mind to share, Bulinda? What do you think about the sunrise of the accounting profession? Thank you.
A very good afternoon, everybody. I hope all of you is still not sleepy during this time after lunch. Okay, so thank you very much for the concern. I think starting this morning, this issue came out to the profession as well as to all of us as an educators, right? But like in my classes, I always tell my students that don't worry, digitalization does not replace us as a human being, because we have God created us to have beyond what a computer can do, right? So we have to bear that in mind. But I would like to share the argumentation why I'm in that position. If you hear from this morning, it seems that actually the expectation for our profession is getting more and more important. Why? Why it is important? Because if we look from the viewpoint of there are functions, right, in an organization, and those functions in the organization, they actually stand alone. And all this while, accountant is actually coordinating all the functions and then preparing for the result, which is shown in financial report. But does it enough now? Since we have another big responsibility, actually accountant is questioning to give the opportunity to the accountant to become the champion of the organization sustainability. Why? Why this again? Were in our part to do this? Because actually at the end, all what the company or organism is doing will be shown on or reported about it. So the one who is in charge report at the end is a professional accountant. So that is the reason why for number one, we have still the chance to be still an important part of the organization is because we have that one. And then the second one is expectation of the user of the report itself. The accountancy profession is actually driving a higher quality, decision, useful, sustainability related information. Why I pinpoint this one? Because all this while, I'm not talking that the financial report is of high quality or it is not important, right? Because I'm afraid there are so many in this panel, like Pak Jumadi and then Pak Yudi. They are all the guardian of the financial report, right? So I'm not saying that financial report is not important, but it is not sufficient. Why? Because it only shows the financial aspect. Whilst nowadays, everybody, every stakeholders is pressuring an organization to show their activity which is aligned with the sustainability issues that we are all facing in this world. So that is the reason why we have to provide stakeholders with the related information which contain a useful sustainability related information. And this cannot be a standalone one, but it has to be integrated with the financial report. Okay, next. We have 8 actually, the critical priority, Bu Lulu, if we can see from a different angle. Yeah? Okay, next. We have the third one is actually transitioning the role of the CFO to the CFO. Why I said this is CFO is important? Because CFO itself, financial orientation again, we have to change because we have to create value for the future. That is the important part. And this is the difference actually between what we have already done up till now and the future that we are facing. Because if we only focus on financial aspect, what the future will be, we have to take an active part to be able our profession to sustain. So that is the reason why there is no question again for asking why we have to be involved not just in financial. So we have to have an integrated mindset. And actually, the biggest barrier for the professional accountant to change this mindset is because they are too focused as a provider of financial reporting, not become a strategic business partner. So this is important. We have to develop the leadership and the professional skill that accountant have. So it's not enough for accountant just to master the technical aspect. Accountant has to have the leadership and professional skill, as but just now Bruce has mentioned, in IS2, IS3 and 4, right? The 2 is on the technical skill, 3 and 4 on that aspect. And it has to be related, not a standalone standard. I think this is also the challenges for us as educator, how in giving a lesson in classes, we have to link those 3 all together. Because if not, we will find difficulties, right? How to teach just professional skill. So this have to be embedded when we are talking about IS2. Okay, and then the next one is we have to have a professional accountant ready for forward-thinking leadership. Why this is also important? Because sometimes we as an accountant do not have the confidence to step into a leadership roles. We are always at the back door. If I said in Javanese is orang wong wengking, ya kan? Always at the back, always at the kitchen, cooking all the numbers, right? Now we have to have this professionalism And we have to be bold enough and confident that we can step into the leadership roles actually. And if you see many of the CEO in the world actually are accountants. We have not touched this well. So I think this is also our homework as educator to tell the student, to inspire the student actually that they can be a leader one day, not just preparer of financial report. Okay, so we have to equip them with the capabilities and skill such as sustainability and digital transformation skill on top of what they have now, and also the leadership and human, such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. So there are still four to go, which show that actually there are many opportunities for the accounting profession. Okay, next. So the fifth is the evaluating the finance talent model and career pathway. So if we are looking at the pathway, actually professional accountant do not just have the pathway as an auditor or accountant, not just. They can be in everywhere. They can be useful in every part of an organization. Okay, maybe later on, Pak Jackie, as a marketer, he will tell you that accountant is needed actually in a marketing division, not just for preparing the financial reporting at the end. Okay, and then the next one is we have to expand the global and attractiveness of the profession to actually meet the fast-growing demand of the corporate world. So here we have to be influencer and leader in organization. I think this is very important too, because if we just wait for everything to happen in a company or in an organization, and then we just wait for all the transaction to happen, and then we prepare the report just like that, I don't think that will make a difference. But we have to be influencing and leading in that organization. Okay, next. The last two opportunity that accountants still have, Bululu, is we have to support the growth of the accountant in public sector. Right? Because as a PAO, IAI has to oblige to what we call statement of membership obligation to IFAC. And one of the statement of membership obligation is we have to apply the standard for public sector. So public sector plays a very important part. If private sector only developing, but the public sector is far behind, it will not guarantee the goodness of the country. So we have to be also grow together. Private and public sector, we have to go together to be able to reach what is our mission actually. And then the last one is we have to transform accounting and finance professional in this digital area. Digitalization is always a threat, a threat to our profession. But actually it's not a threat, it's an enabler. Why it is an enabler? We can shift our focus. Instead to the operation, we can now shift to become strategic activities. Instead of collecting data for the transaction, they are now can be done through the system, the IT, right? The automation. So we can just do the strategic part. We do not do like what we have done before. This is a great shifting. So once again, it is not a threat, but it is actually giving us the enabler for us to do our work better. I think by having these 8 priorities, we can see and conclude that this is still a very promising profession, Bu Lulu.
Thank you, Bu Linda. That's the conclusion. It's still in the sunrise, Bapak Ibu. It's still in the it's the promising professions. But then if we move to Indonesia now, for Indonesian context, we have here Pak Jumadi, Pak Jaki, and Pak Yudi, which is people who are involved in the practice, in the industry, Pak. Maybe starting with Pak Jumadi first. Obviously, with accountant, we see accountant as in auditing profession or assurance professions. In Indonesian context, Pak Jumadi, in regard to these challenges, would you mind sharing on whether the auditing and assurance or public accounting firms in general also face these challenges in attracting and recruiting and retentions of talents, Pak? Would you mind to share that, Pak? Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Lulu. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. When I drove my way into this campus, it really brought back the sweet memory 30 years ago, right? Same with you, right? Yeah. Very nice greeneries, nice river. I think it's a very beautiful campus. Although, this was not a campus that I attended. So that's one thing. Right? Second thing, I feel very privileged, sharing in front of all the educators here, which I would always refer to as unsung heroes. Yeah. I have to admit that what you have been doing, I think, means a lot to the build up of a nation, I would think, right? Okay, so back to your question, Bu Lulu. Okay, I think, we have been hearing a lot of information from previous speakers, right from the one in the morning session, and also what we have currently heard from Tanya and also Bruce. Yeah, so I wouldn't be talking about kind of the, what you call the concepts and everything, right? Because I think it's already been explained very well by all the speakers. So for us, I think in the professional firms, right, attracting talents is as important as retaining them. Yeah. And in fact, those processes are part of what we call a human capital management at large. Now, I think if you remember, about 3 years ago, in 2020, when we were first hit by the pandemic, there were a lot of startup companies, right? And money was cheap at that point in time, not now, but money was very cheap. And then investors are flooding all these startups with a lot of cash. And therefore, they need to be thinking about what to do with the cash. So they need to build up new projects, new initiatives, and they are sucking a lot of resources, including from accounting firms. And that was the period where attracting people to work in the accounting firm was very, very difficult. Yeah, let alone retaining them. Yeah, I think we were having a turnover rate of close to 30%. So it's 28%. So 1 out of 3 person actually left at that point in time. So it was very, very hard. Okay. And then I think there is a season for everything, right? 2022, we see a tightening of money, so capital is not very easy to get anymore for startups. Now, all of the resources then, stick longer in our firms. So I think as of now, the turnover has gone down to just about 20%. Yeah. So when we talk about attracting resources, first of all, of course, we need the talents to actually know what they can do and what they can expect from working in the industry. Yeah, be it in the professional accounting firms or also outside the professional accounting firms. I was a student back then, right? I told you 30 years ago, right? So all I did was cracking the books, intermediate accounting, written by Kiso. I don't know whether you guys are using that also. I'm guessing. Okay. So without actually linking myself to what's happening at the world outside. Yeah. So when we are talking about attracting talents, I think what we are actually doing is go to the campuses, including University of Indonesia, to actually explain to the students of what they could be expecting to do and to contribute if they work in a professional accounting firms. That's number one, right? That would include actually explaining to them that accounting firms does not only do auditing. Okay, I think readers here, the speakers here have already explained to you all that currently at large, typically an accounting firm would have what we call a core assurance services and then a broader assurance services, right? We would like to actually address ourselves as a trust solution services. So what we do actually is to enhance trust. Trust in what? Trust in financial statements, financial reporting, trust in sustainability reporting, trust in system implementation, trust in compliance with laws and regulations. You name it, there are a lot of trust there, right? So when we are saying that, we're providing assurance, actually, as mentioned by Bruce, if I'm not mistaken, what is the purpose of people actually doing all that? So at PwC, we actually tell people, look, the purpose of PwC is to build trust in a society and to solve important problems. Those are the purposes why you accountants are working here, right? We're not just saying, okay, you need to actually achieve 40 hours a week and then, issue a financial statements, blah, 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 at the proper time, yeah? But those are the things that we are trying to tell the talents. Now, retaining. Now, let me go to the retaining. As I mentioned before, right, I think people always say, right, mendapatkan lebih gampang daripada mempertahankan ya, biasanya. Now, it goes the same in the firms, right? Given the dynamics of the competition, yeah, so we have to actually see the nature of the resources that we have. You know about Gen Z, right? I think in another seminar, I think there was a discussion about Gen Z. So we need to actually adapt ourselves towards the characteristic of Gen Z. That would include the agile working practice, or some people call it flexible working practice, right? And then the choice of career path. You want to be an auditor, you want to be looking at the sustainability, you want to focus more on the governance, risk, and controls. You want to talk about cybersecurity with the clients. The new regulation about privacy, data privacy has, hit the corporations. You want to talk about that? You want to provide services about that? So I think what I want to also educate us to pesan sponsor ya Bapak Ibu. You can actually tell your students that, outside, that it's not only financial audit for accountants, right? There are so many things that they can actually explore. That's all. I'll just stop there. Yeah. Bululu, yeah. Else I will be talking about this whole day. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pak Jumadi. So, I guess interesting that Pak Jumadi mentioned about trust solutions provider, or as Bruce also shown the examples from the Australia, the financial bodyguards and investigators. I guess that's one of the role of accountant here from the accounting firms. And if we move to the corporate sector here, Pak Jackie, from accountants working in corporations, which sometimes, most of the time, have a questions on what actually accountants do in the corporations. Is there a challenge as well in terms of attracting this accountant and retaining them?
Thank you for having me. I just want to continue what Prof. Linda said before, the winking. Still remember that? Well, the winking person always drink legend, meaning wong winking mesti ngombe legen. Okay, anyway. So for me, I think we have to advocate like this. The smartest people should be an accountant. That's what you have to say, number one. Okay? And following what Bruce said, this is the thing. Most educators, don't get offended. I'm also an educator. Don't get offended. They always try to complicate the simple things. You can laugh, ha ha ha, it's okay. So we should actually simplify the complex things. Just like what Bruce said, that's number one. Number two. Number three, I think we have to reposition the, accounting as a brand. We have to reposition that. But before we reposition, we have to understand to what segment we're trying to come this CPA, accountant, those kind of things. We cannot just, segmentize the market by, this is for accountant. No. We have to go deeper. What kind of accountant? Accountant as a person, you segment that by demographic. It's too general. You have to go into more deeper than that. Focus on what I call it the psychographic profile of those accountants. Okay, so this is if you're the smartest people in the world, be an accountant, and not just an accountant, but accountant that will save the world. Right? You can save the world, being an accountant, through accounting can save the world. So we're talking about accounting, in relation with what we call it humanity. That's ESG. Everybody's now understanding ESG, right? Everybody's now, adopting that, 3 pillars of Elkington's, for instance, like that. So we have to redefine the value proposition of accountant, CPAs, whatever. We have to redefine it. So we have to propose another, a higher level, a more holistic definition of accounting. So, and we can, as we discussed from this early morning, being an accountant is just like generic now, right? So you have to find the angle of differentiating what kind of accountant we are, right? So we are the accountant that, purpose-driven accountant. That's more psychographic. So, means that, what about the educators? Again, we are the frontliners to advocate that. We cannot just ask people to appreciate us before we sell that idea. Hey, accounting is, don't play with accountant, something like that. Okay? Jangan main-main with accountant because we're saving the world. Without us, you're all gone. Put it that way. Very fundamental. So that's what we have to understand. We have to create new awareness, to create new perception about accounting, about accountant. That's number one. But awareness is not enough. It should be strongly appealing to that particular segment. Otherwise, it will not create attraction. People will not be attracted. But once you're appealing, accounting, it's really appealing, it's going to save the world, it's very humanity-oriented, blah, 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 then we have to make sure that we can build interest. We can, measure it through how many people out there asking about accounting. Is it really true like this? Is it really, creating interest? At that point, as Bruce said before, we have to have a very compelling story about accounting. Otherwise, they will not have or show any commitment to be an accountant. But before you accept them to learn, this is the thing. We have to start from ourselves. If we teach strategy, marketing, whatever operations, we have to make sure that we, as an educator, we have the calling to do that. Not just work as an educator, in an education industry sector and educate people. No, we have to show our passion to what we really do every day. And having said that, we cannot just teach them, but we have to make something contagious. We have to share our passion to them as well, to create, the spirit, something like that. It's more spiritual than just numbers. So this is what I think the future that will really attract more talent out there. And again, the terminology is professional accountant, profession. So sometimes if we have to kind of approach an academic world, science and profession, right? So if we try to make them professional, don't be too scientific to them. Science is a background, right? If you want to do scientific accounting, then you have to do a lot of reading, a lot of journals and everything. And this is sometimes not really, 100% useful in the real world out there. So this is the difference between science and professions. But we need academicians. We need educators. It only depends on the segment we're dealing with. And this is what we have to say. You earn credit by taking whatever accounting in this school, for instance, like in the University of Indonesia. You earn credit, but you earn credit here, but at the end of the day, you will also earn credit in the real world. So it's really relevant to the real world. So this is, I think, what we have to communicate. And last but not least, we have to change our KPIs. Sometimes I also have, conduct some interviews with some candidates that would like to take the master's degree. I always tell them like this. Well, this is your CV. I don't read it. I don't care. Okay? Because everyone can make good CVs right now. Right? What I want to learn from that person is how strong their passion to take the study, the program. Not because of the GPA, not because of he or she's coming from a grade school. That's number 2 or number 3. But number 1, I think we can, feel that this person is really serious. So I think that will make accounting or as a more inclusive than before. You accept all talents. Again, companies now, they don't need employees. It's the end of the employee era. What they need is talented people. So what you have to recruit is a talented candidate. And okay, don't make them suffer. That's also very important. That's what I heard from, don't make them suffer. We have to really more, quote unquote, customer centric. Not you listen to us, but we have to, adjust ourselves to our customers. Students, learners, they are our customers. And they're source of our fortune. They pay the tuition fee. Right? So this is what we have to see in return. So I think that's a bit from my side. Okay, I hope nobody get offended here. But please don't try at home. Okay? And again, as an educator, I think we have to really redefine. We have to unlearn the past. We appreciate that, but we cannot just, glorify our past. Past is past. What really important is what we're discussing today and what we're going to do tomorrow to really, stay relevant. Stay relevant in the future, not in the future. So that's why I think one of the proposal, I think we have to be not just an educator, but a purpose-driven educator. And through accounting, we can really change the world, save the world. And I think that's part of the anxiety and desires, not the needs and wants of those coming from Gen Z. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Jackie. Interesting that we've heard from, again, Pak Jumadi as well and Pak Jackie about Gen Z nowadays. Twice we heard about Gen Z, and Pak Jackie also mentioning about passions, how we can build a passionate accountant. Now, with the really unique and, again, as critical sector here in Indonesia as well as worldwide, Pak Yudi, from public sector, Is there any challenges, Pa, for getting people, getting accountants as public sector accountant and obviously retaining them in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for having me for this very interesting discussion on the accountants profession. I think we couldn't discuss about the public sector in 1 hour. There's so many things we discuss, but I just want to emphasize what Prof. Lina mentioned. From the perspective public sector, accountant is promising. Even it's still early stage, especially in Indonesia. And again, we couldn't compare the career in public sector with the private at the moment because, you know, the ecosystem is quite still in the early stage to have harmonization to some extent. Of course, this is going to be very like our homework on the long pathway. But I would like to start with this kind of, can we have a slide, please? So I just want to see from the, because I'm from the public sector content compartment. Next slide, please. I just want to show you about the data that we have. Next slide, please. Yes, we have this one. I think interesting. If you see the member of Indonesian accounting chapter based on job categories, you can see this one, practice and content 1.8%, management accounting 20%, and then you can see the public sector accountant. I just want to focus on public sector accountant, 90.1. But to some extent, it's gonna be mixed to some extent. But the thing is, like, if you see the total number here, 35,000. I think it's just recorded. It could be more than this. It could more than this. I would like to say, if you compare with the population of Indonesia is 270 millions, and the businesses, the public institution, we still have promising career. Especially, I'm talking about the market industry from the public sector. So don't worry. Still have many things. So this is one thing we would like to emphasize, that industry from the public sector still promising, and we need the accountant career to part of this engagement in public sector. Next slide, please. Another picture that I would like, this is one of the initiative from the public sector accountant compartment to uphold the standard and practice in public sector accountant by providing certification, because by like educating or equipping them in the knowledge in preparing financial reporting, I think we have already certified for government accounting expert and government associate. This still a long journey to certify as a minimum requirement for fulfilling the engagement of a public sector accountant, and with the integration skill, professional certification. So from the perspective of public sector accountant compartment, we still have many homework. And of course, this is need collaborative way, not only from the compartment public, also the private and other compartment in Indonesian chapter. So still have many things to do. The last what figure that I would like to show, this next slide, please. The next slide. I would like to show the public financial ecosystem. Next slide, please. There is no. I just want to show the. I think miss the slide, but the slide demonstrate the what Indonesian public financial ecosystem. For information, since started like 2005, when we have we call public financial reform, we have a new law of the public state finance, where the government institution, not only national, province, district, and city, they have obligation to provide financial reporting. So 2009, 2015, the financial reporting is more cash-based, and start from 2015 accrual toward cash toward accrual, and now 2015 and now is accrual based accounting system. So what I would like to inform, every years, like the Audit Board of Indonesia certified more than 700 financial reporting. For central government, we certified around 90 financial statement. For the regional, which is the province, district, and city, is more 500. And now, after more than 12 years, the quality of financial reporting is from the disclaimer or qualified to unqualified opinion. And from the perspective of accountant profession, accountant is engaged in info as a preparer and as the auditor. As preparer, I think is from Minister of Finance, from the all government institution, provinces, city and district, and as well as from the auditor, internal auditor. We have inspectorate there. We have internal auditor government, and from the Supreme Audit Institution of BPK. So even though we have because most of the financial reporting public sector, we got the unqualified opinion, but the question from the public is, what the next? It is enough from the public expectation only fairness of presentation, because it's quite different to some extent from the public sector. The public is not need only unqualified opinion. They would like to kind of satisfy themselves, but to what extent the public institution already provide their public services, education, health, infrastructure, whether this is already demonstrated through the financial information. As mentioned by Prof. Linda, financial reporting is not enough to satisfy the public expectation. So this point, I would like to stress that we still have many things that we can work, not only for expressing assertion, management assertion for financial information, but also non-financial information. Even though we call in Bahasa Indonesia is LAPI, Laporan Kinerja or Performance Statement, but again, still problem to identify the quality of spending of government. If you see in the government structure expenditure, most 60% to 70% non-operational costs. But to what extent we explain about the capital expenditure. The current financial reporting framework, we haven't demonstrated yet about this one. So this one is still have a kind of opportunity as a content, especially from public sector, to elaborate more. But the challenges and that we are facing, working as a public sector accountant is not easy. Myself is, I could say, accountant by default because I come from the state accountancy. I'm like born as the public sector accountant. That's why when I graduated, automatically I'm a public servant. So by default, I'm served to the country. But from the private, even I'm from the University of Indonesia and Gajah Mada University, IMEX here, but a career path or career choice for accountant to join with the public sector things, we need to give, like, for example, career opportunity and how we provide, we call compensation disparities. And it is quite different with Pak Jumadi compared to the BPK or BPKP or inspectorate. We need to have provide attractiveness from the government that they can attract the student join with the public sector, because still promising and still have a huge of industry that we can work on it for the future of Indonesia. The last thing that we need is about the training and development in public sector. So because we can see from, for example, in our office, we have a training institute, but then it's supposed to be working with the private university to work together. And even in the university can work together by understanding the case study that we found during working as a public sector area. Even though we can working with the private, because to some extent, in some point like state-owned enterprises or the PPP, we are working with the private accounting standard. So there are so many things that we can work on in the public sector. So this is, you can see almost 700 the audit report. So this is industry from the public sector that we would like to provide the opportunity to the profession. So this is our future that we can work together to answer. As mentioned Prof. Linda, public sector is very important to demonstrate to the world that Indonesia toward to the accountability, transparency in public sector to safeguard the public money. So I should stop here. My key message is we still have opportunity to elaborate this industry in public sector. Of course, is sunrise. Thank you.
Thank you, Payudi. So we've heard from the industry, and basically the conclusion is it's still a sunrise. There are still a lot of opportunities, even though there are quite some challenge regarding the generations, changing in the generation, changing in the working conditions, for example, after the pandemic and so on. Some compensation disparity, probably as Payudi mentioned, for certain industry, but it is still a sunrise profession. There are still opportunities moving forward. Now, I would like to hear from the regulator, Pa Ari, here. How would you describe the regulations of accounting profession in Indonesia, and how do you think that regulation can enhance the attractiveness of the accounting profession?
Thank you, Bu Lulu, for the perspective of regulator that the regulation we have is basically we partner, like the Minister of Finance partners with the three professional bodies such as IAI, IAP, and also IAMI. And then the second one is Minister of Finance is also make a brand like Jack said that accountant brand is called State Register of Accountant. This I think only one and only in Indonesian. All you can search in the word who is the government who endorsed the profession such an accountant in Indonesia. That's the brand that you as an educator should explore. And then about the how we manage the accountant, as I said before, we partners. We only regulate the practicing accountant with the heavy regulations such as public accountant. Other than public accountant, such as accountant in business, we give the power to regulate and also supervise to the professional bodies. So that's the balance of the accountant regulation in Indonesia. And then how to enhance, or we know that the regulation beyond the brand is not supported the ecosystem of financial reporting. That's why based on the new law, number 4 of the development and strengthening the public financial sector, said that there's one chapter to intend to strengthen the financial reporting ecosystem. That's how government wants to strengthening and give the role to the accountant. That's how we manage. Then based on our experience now, we regulate some of professions as accountant, also valuer, actuary, and also tax consultant. One that differentiate accountant with all those three is trust. Like Pak Jumadi said that. Uh, that's how ES4 like a morning session by Bruce said that accountant have the professional value. That's the difference. Will differentiate you with other profession. That's the that's how you can work to any other areas, but it will differentiate you with all of other and how to survive to this advancement of the technology. Accountant is also have to be like a sponge. You have to have an open-minded, like Bruce said in the morning session, and you have to learn other discipline, because such as sustainability reporting. As accountant, you must have the knowledge in the environmental also, and also in technique. And that's why you accountant have to be open-minded. I think that's I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Ari. But based from what Pak Ari said, even the government has recognized the importance of accounting profession, as stated in the law, that the accounting profession has a very crucial role in the financial profession in Indonesia, in ensuring the financial reporting ecosystem in Indonesia. So we've heard about all the other panelists today about the fact that accounting profession still has the future. But on the other hand, we do recognize that there are challenges globally and also in Indonesia, as mentioned by other panelists here today. And from the Indonesian Chartered Accountant Associations, or EAI, EAI has actually introduced some of the initiatives to try to capture the opportunities, as well as try to solve or try to face some of these challenges. Bu Linda, as a EAI council member, would you mind to share some of the initiatives that EAI has mentioned or has launched in recent years?
You, Bu Lulu. Actually, ERA has this in mind a long time ago. And we have also actually what we call ERA Muda, Anggota Muda, yeah? Because we have three different kind of membership. We have the main member, we have the CA, and then we have the Madya, what we call Anggota Madya, those who have not have the designation of CA, and the Anggota Muda. So actually, we feel that there is a need actually for that one. Yeah. So, but I will start one by one in explaining what are the initiatives actually EIE has done all this while. So the first one is the one that just now Bruce also mentioned, the one that was done, or I think Bruce or Tanya mentioned about what Philippines has done. Actually, we also did that last year in our anniversary on December. IAI launched campaign Beyond the Numbers to anticipate the role of the accountant actually. Why we launched this? This is actually if we are talking about reporting. Sustainability report itself is crucial, but sustainability actually starts inside the companies. So if we are talking about inside of the companies, it means we have to have an accountants to have the knowledge of operation, the knowledge of value chain, business process, risk, governance. All those have to be mastered by an accountant. I'm not saying that they have to replace those with the more expertise on that. But as an accountant, we have to understand those to be able to implement or execute our work well. Because if not, you are just looking at the numbers and and it will come where manipulation will be if you don't understand the process. So understanding value chain business process is a must. So that is the reason why we launched this campaign to actually repositioning or transform our profession. And then the second one, this is the IAI Aspiring Professional Accountant Festival. We actually have that since 2017. I think most of educators aware of this festival. We do that every year annually, and it is usually being done in Indonesian Stock Exchange building, the final. So I think this is also one of the big event of IAI to attract talent since they were young in the university. Besides that, we also, since 2020, we also collaborate with the annual activity for the young accountant, namely FinBiz 2030, organized by One Young World and Chartered Accountant Worldwide. And then, and for the information of the audience, actually since 2017, there are more than 9,000 offline participants and 80,000 online participants from more than 200 universities around Indonesia joining this APA Fest. So Bapak Ibu, para dosen, I hope that you can also encourage your student to also participate in this APA festival, because this is one of the ways that we can aspiring them to become part of the accounting profession in future. And then starting this year, IAI provide 1,000 CA scholarship for outstanding accounting students. Hopefully, for those of you Bapak Ibu educator that have not heard about this, please convey this message to your talented student to join this scholarship that IAI provide starting when they have passed their sixth semester. So from the very young, they can join the profession actually and do their dedication, not to it until they finish the university. And then the next one, we also established IAI Young Member Chapter in the 10 largest IAI regional office. For your information, Bruce and Tanya have 34 regional office around Indonesia. And we try as our pilot project to have the young member chapter in a 10 largest region first. And then if it is succeeded and we know how to handle that, then we will have that also to other region. We have what we call IAI affiliated campus and corporate partners. This is actually to bridge between the corporation with the university so that they will be aligned between the needs of the user and also the provider concern. And also this can be used also as a venue to meet each other and also hopefully to have a cooperation on the internship program. And then the last but not least, we also established the just newborn compartment, which we call as a professional accountant in business sector compartment, where Pak Jackie is in that compartment, because we want to bridge actually and to get our accounting profession nearer to the business. So we have this compartment being set up. Hopefully, by having a very intense communication, we can fill in each other gap, and at last, we can achieve our mission together. That's the 6 main activity, Bu Lulu, that I has already done this while, and hopefully we hope to get the support and also the active participation from the educator, especially who present here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Linda. So, Bapak Ibu, there are a lot of initiatives from the IAI. So, please feel free to ask for the information, and we hope that Bapak Ibu here representing university will also encourage your students to join all of these initiatives as well. Talking about educators now. And we've also talked about educators, especially curricula in some of the point that Bruce and Tanya mentioned during the presentations. And I'm sure Bapak Ibu here, we are probably this year have to think of our curricula because of new regulations by the Ministry of Education. And while we're talking about changing the curricula as well, and we also discussing about the exposure draft of the new revisions for the IS, and we are also talking about these challenges on attracting the professions. How can we connect all of this together? So maybe to Bruce and Tanya, how do you think, or maybe first thing first, when there is a process of developing the IS, is there any considerations on how the whole of IS actually will help in making the profession more attractive and probably like solving some of the challenges that you mentioned in regard to the attracting challenges? And you already mentioned about the IS1 as one of your example, but for us, maybe we are more interested probably in the IS2, 3, and 4, for example, how the design of the IS help or facilitate the educators to attract talent, as mentioned before, that educators is probably, or at least the university level, at undergraduate, it's probably the first sort of guard. We are probably the first sort of people that recognize why do we have less and less students that are more interested in taking accounting as their undergraduate program of choice, for example. How do you think the implementations of IS will be helpful for a university in that specific context? Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I think there's a number of angles to tackle this question. One is to say the ISs are very principles-based, and I tried to highlight that a bit in my presentation, which means that you have a lot of freedom in the how. So we try to avoid putting the how to deliver education into the ISs. We try to put the what, and that's, that what is it that you want to achieve by the end of the RPD process, but how you teach it, how you build your pathways, how you split the content up. Like I mentioned earlier very briefly that our competence areas are not subjects. It's very intentional because you can take any different route. We're hearing of micro-credentialing routes, ways of building up the qualification, or I mentioned kind of the elective process and what happens afterwards on specialization. So there's a lot of flexibility in the how. I think one of the things we would really value feedback on in the revisions during the consultation process is how will this affect you in the classroom? How will this affect the teaching? So it's great for us to be principles-based approach, have a principles-based approach, but if the how is essentially impossible, then you need to tell us. We need to have that feedback. Obviously, we've tried to make sure that what we've put into these revisions are implementable. But I know we have a question even in our consultation around that, about whether this is actually doable. We did think very carefully as we went through the revisions and as we were drafting about the issue of curriculum overload. So we know there is a huge amount in accountancy curricula, and it's only increasing. So we tried to think as we went through of, is there things we could take out, and try to be careful not to go too far. I didn't unpack this in detail in my presentation earlier, but on sustainability assurance in our proposals, you'll see we've actually proposed it at a foundation level, not at an intermediate. Most of our learning outcomes are at an intermediate level. Now, I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's one small way that we were trying to be a little bit cautious to say, hold on, we don't want to just create a whole another section, add another year onto the qualification, because that's not helpful. So what I would encourage educators to do, obviously first of all in the engagement, but then as you would take this and implement it, think very carefully about where is there redundancy in your curricula? Where are you over teaching? Where are you going too far? Remember that the classroom is not the only place that students learn. They also learn on the job. So being very clear about which of these learning outcomes are achieved in the classroom, which are learned on the job, which are learned in combination, which is most of them. What's the weight between those? Those are some of the things I would look out for, because I think that there is a lot of places where we probably can reduce the amount of time we spend on certain topics, and rather place the big emphasis on being very practical, being very case study based in our education, being trying to keep things as attached to reality as possible. The last part that I'll just emphasize that we're thinking about, I mentioned curriculum overload, and I suspect we might have a project down the road to actually look at our standards and see if there's things that we should be taking out. That will take quite a lot of research, quite a lot of outreach, so we don't do that without being very careful of the consequences of those changes. But I mentioned earlier about technology and AI, and certainly with technology, we embedded a whole bunch of new learning outcomes around technology about 4 or 5 years ago into the education standards. It was mostly about adding. I think our next question is going to be about, hold on, what does technology replace? Are there some learning outcomes that actually aren't so relevant anymore because of the role of technology? So it's a bunch of things we need to think of. And I suppose right at the beginning of the way you asked the question was a bit of the link to attractiveness. Fundamentally, these revisions we do think will make the profession more attractive, and perhaps placing some of the emphasis on some of the exciting things coming through revisions may attract Gen Z. In my country, we say Gen Z. But it's the same generation with the same expectations, no matter which way we say it. And I think, there's definitely an opportunity to leverage this new aspect of where the profession is going in sustainability work. Let's just be careful we don't overdo that. So we have heard a lot of people almost overselling what accountants are going to do with sustainability. I do believe accountants can save the world. But sometimes we sell it in a way that is a bit disingenuous. So we've got to be careful. We've got to demonstrate why accountants are so critical to the efficiency of capital markets, and how through the work we do, we can also bring trust to sustainability information, which can lead to better decision making, so that we can see sustainable economic and the growth in the world, which leads to accountants saving the world. But we've got to be careful to claim that some of our disclosures are going to just automatically save the world, right? And it's why our communication, our soft skills, the way we support decision making, or where this affects business strategy, all of these things need to be a core part. So a long response to a short question, but thank you.
Yeah.
Tanya, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, just a little thing to add. And Bruce mentioned the how, but I think it's really important. There's so many jurisdictions that are facing similar issues and are grappling with the how. How are we actually going to do this? I was recently, prior to coming to Indonesia, in Cambodia, and what they have looked at, education in terms of, well, we don't necessarily have a lot of people who are passing our exam. What can we do? And so they have recently launched a national exam. And I think the first set of takers are taking it in the May-June period, and they're very hopeful. But they've looked at the lay of the land. But I think the lesson is, what are other jurisdictions doing? Like, how are they tackling the issue? Is there a way in which we can share information with one another and lessons learned? Or maybe not lessons learned, they're mistakes that were made and we can learn from those mistakes. Because I think if we do this in a cocoon, we're not necessarily going to advance the cause as well. So as much as possible, I would also encourage learning and sharings to be shared as much as possible.
Thank you, Bruce and Tanya. So basically, one of the key points that from that answers is that by the revision that is currently in process is hopefully also emphasizing the breadth of accountants' role in the future, including in the sustainability, in the digital technology, and so on. So maybe now if we moving toward Indonesia again, maybe Pak Ari can start. If we're talking about changing the curricula at the university in regard to the accounting educations from undergrad, postgrad, do you have any sort of idea or comments of or suggestions in terms of the key changes that you would like to see in the university curricula, Pak?
Maybe I will take some of Bruce's presentation, also Bu Linda presentation, that some like an advanced technology such as an AI based, this must take into the curricula because it will help the accountant. And then it like sustainability, it's also important to take into the curricula. And also, like Bruce said, accountant need professor soft skill to help to strengthen their value as accountant. So if they can, if they have that soft skill, maybe they will be like a Superman can save the world, like the Pak Jack said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak. So probably on AI and soft skills and sustainability, as Pak Ari also mentions. Now, if we're moving toward the industry, Pak, maybe I'll start again with Pak Jumadi from the perspective of your industry, Pak, as an accounting firms. Is there any knowledge or again any changes that you would like to see within the university curricula, Pak?
Thank you, Bilulu. So I will start with this statement first. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the curriculum right now. Okay, that's my first statement, right? Number two, I think I will just go back to my own experience when I was a student back then, right? So I think back then there were a lot of elective courses like strategic management, teori portfolio dan analisis investasi. For example, perilaku organisasi, yeah, organization behavior. So I think there are a lot which were actually elective, which now actually I found are very relevant. Yeah. And thankfully I knew it when I was a student. So I took strategic management, I took the portfolio theory and investment analysis. I even took the database management, right? So perhaps somebody whispered me already back then. Yeah. So that's my second statement. My third statement is like this. I think when we actually want to recruit people, yeah, as Pak Jackie mentioned, we want people with passion. I don't know how you are going to be able to incorporate that in your curriculum, right? Teaching people about passion, right? But then the governing principles that we have, three things. Number one is relevant. That person has to be relevant. Number two is reliable. And number three, he could exercise care, right? In our business, those three things, among other things, are being looked at by our clients as providing value to them. Yeah. So by relevant, of course, this is a dynamic thing that we're talking about, right? Who knows, 5 years from now, something else other than sustainability popping up. So what we want our people to see is, they have to be agile. They don't have to be an expert in everything, okay? But they only need to know the fundamentals to be able to become the conductor. Because accountants are very, very good at looking at things, from many different angles, right? And we are privileged in a sense that, there's a standard also in auditing standards where we can engage multiple experts and specialists. Yeah. So those are the things that I really want to say, that relevant is going to be a dynamic one, depending what's going to be popping up in the future. But right now, it's sustainability, as mentioned by many people, and technology. Yeah. The other thing, this is something that I really want to stress to all of the educators as well. Since we're moving towards fair value accounting, right? The old fashion of, an accountant sitting in a room checking the, the receipts, the evidence, the hard evidence, that has gone away. Financial reporting is a business language, right? So we as accountants have to be able to speak in that language. Now, I don't know how you will be able to incorporate that again in your curriculum, but I think, those are the aspects that we are actually talking about. Now, let me go quickly for the remaining two. The second one is reliability. Reliability, I will just, equate that with professionalism. You mean what you say what you mean, okay? And you have this set of ethics and independence rules, and that is actually differentiating you from a professional organization to an amateur organization. And I don't know about now, but I don't remember having a lot of exposure with ethics and independence courses when I was a student. Okay. And now it is very, very important. We have heard about this training integrity issue. Yeah. And a lot of other things. So I think to be able to provide trust solution, we also need to be trusted ourselves. I think that's kind of the, direction that we are heading towards. Yeah. The last one is care. Very quickly, you can be a genius, you can be very reliable, but if you actually talking to your clients with frown faces, nobody's gonna be talking to you, right? I mean, you got to be like Pak Jackie, right? Very enthusiastic, passionate, able to communicate in a way that can connect you to your audience. That is what we call interpersonal skills. Yeah. So I do hope, because you really need to connect to people, to connect to business, to connect to so many parties, that interpersonal skills have to be actually developed also in a very early years of your, of their time as student.
Thank
So,
you,
thank
Pak Jumadi. So that's a very important input for Bapak Ibu. So relevance, something that's currently obviously happening in the world, sustainability, but also soft skills, as Pak Ari also mentioned, soft skill, including ethics, professionalism. Maybe moving on to Pak Yudi first, Pak, from the perspective of public sector, is there any additional, Pak, maybe other than what we have discussed in terms of what knowledge or topics that you would like to be covered within the curriculum?
Thank you. I still remember on that class 30 years back when my lecturer, Pak Kacep Abdul Qadir, his the accounting theory lectures. It's very, I still remember. He's explained to me about the postulate and premise about the recognition, representation, and measurement. It's the conceptual framework I still remember until now. When I discussed with the IFAC, and I was leading last year with the IFAC board when I dealing with the international auditor in UN, I still remember to understand the principle base of accounting standard of IFAC because of 30 years. And I'm still understand about the concept of postulate of the recognition and measurement. I would like to say, like, I agree with Pak Jackie about science and profession. But to some extent, even in profession, it's like in our office, we still need science. Because to some extent, currently the auditing standard, accounting standard is principle-based. It's very strict. We need kind of understanding of professional and conceptual framework to understand and to apply, to implement the accounting and auditing in the field. Somehow, like me as auditor, somehow we argue with the preparer in interpreting the financial standard, accounting policy, and accounting system. But you can imagine, if accountant, they don't understand about the conceptual framework of accounting, then they miss. What I would like to emphasize, still we need science, but it's more to can embrace or address the real world in understanding the application of what we are learning. For example, accounting theory, for example. because it's very dynamic now. Every time the standard setting making process can be revising, withdrawn, everything. And then somehow the preparer, they're dealing on how they develop the accounting system of accounting policy in their respective organization. And the auditor will come and audit. There we argument, both of them. So I would like to say that it's more important that curricula provide like discourse on the real world in understanding the counting and auditing as such. This is the first thing. And second one, I think, is in public sector, it's not only about knowing about the theory, but also public sector is more ethical, compliance, transparency. So if then there is some space in curriculum to provide the more the ethical consideration, I think not in the public and the private, the same thing, isn't it? Because we as accountant profession, we are dealing with the risk. The audit risk is quite high. And how we can manage with the audit risk? It is the audit risk that we are taking care of. And this is a soft skill, and ethical is very in consideration in the curriculum. And the second one is in public sector, so many specific things, from the budgets, from the fund accounting, compliance, as well as from the reporting, especially when they come up with the new thing like sustainable reporting. There is many issues there. So the curriculum should be this one. And the last thing, I think this is going to be good if have some kind of learning experience. So by knowing the what happened in the real world, by providing practical experience. For example, like case study, like practical project related to public sector accounting. So providing student is more concrete things. Somehow, BPK just received like 800 accountant, Professor, 2 years ago. 800 accountant. So I'm part of the providing curricula, and I still have found the gaps in understanding accounting and auditing in practice. So then we need to put additional course. Meaning to say, there is still gaps in the university to equip the graduation. They can ready for the industry. This is the issue. That's why it would be great if then, like, we have a training facility in our site. We have in internal auditing. We have in the BPKP, the Minister of Finance, we have a stand. So all the institutions, they can collaborate together to provide practical experience to the student by having project, even with the practical or in the private. So by integrated education ecosystem is quite important, because if we would like to build the curricula in the university, it's our responsibility. It's not only the university as such. We as the practitioner, we have responsibility. Pak Jumadi and I responsibility to University of Indonesia because we are from this university, isn't it? So provide the practical experience, because we can then address the challenges in the future in this profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Yudi. So that's a highlighting on the need for ethics again, and also practical experience. Now, moving to Pak Jackie, what do you think, or do you have any idea, Pak?
Yeah.
Especially Pak Jumadi mentioned how can we teach a passion or any initiative?
I think we can invite a lot of what we call it practitioner lecturers. Yeah, practitioner lecturers, that really have the practical experience, and not only experience, but they have the wisdom already, right? So wisdom is like beyond knowledge. That's what I'm trying to say. That's number two. I think I agree to to expose accountant with more strategic management aspect, particularly about intangible assets, because we know right now the source of competition is not really derived from what we call it the tangible assets any longer, but more than intangible assets. So what we have in the balance sheets, as I learned from my experience and also from University of Indonesia, in the balance sheet, what we have there is not really 100% creating the competitiveness of your company. So we have to understand more about what intangible asset is all about. And that's also very important. And how to understand about the business ecosystem as well. Understanding value chain, yes. Supply chain, yes. Upstream, downstream. But I think this is the era of how we have to harness what we call it the ecosystem advantage. So I think understanding, especially digital ecosystem. So I think that's also another issue that I think very important for the educators to understand and share this to all the what I call it, and not the students, but what I call it the learning participants. That's what I would like to say. And the other one is more on the tactical aspects. Is about, for instance, like for instance, like operations, just like Professor Linda said. Operations focusing only for several things. For instance, like in the logistic aspect, for instance. Until now, most universities, especially in marketing, in operation, they only teach up in Indonesia, up to what we call it the 3PL, third-party logistic. But right now, what happening in this whole wide world is already reaching about what 5PL, fifth-party logistics, even six-party logistics. This is also what's very important for all the educators to understand. What is 6PL? Tell us what's the importance of 6PL in business. So I think that's all. And I think one more thing is this is just additional. It's about how to make what we call it valuation on our intangible assets. It's like brand valuation. That's also very, of course, you cannot include that in our balance sheet, but at least this company understand the value of the brand. For instance, like if you want to buy Apple brand today, only the brand, not the factory, not all the facility, just the brand, intangible. We have to spend, I think, not lower than 500 something billion US dollar only for the brand. And this is why there's always a big gap between book value and market value. Because of we cannot really put that intangible value in our balance sheet. We have to understand about how creativity, innovation, those intangible assets really affect the competitiveness of the company and at the end of the day, market value of the company. And not only that, we have to also have the understanding about, again, strategic management from analysis, strategy development, strategy execution, and performance, which measured by two things, financial and non-financial. And from non-financial, I think we have to understand how we can measure not only from financial, of course, we can use the market value, but from the non-financial, I think we have to understand the social value contribution of that company, which is at the end of the day will affect the market value of the company. So I think this is what I would like to,
Thank you,
say it out
Pak Zaki.
right here. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you. Emphasizing again on the need for knowledge on business ecosystem overall. So accountant, yes, there is an accounting division in the corporate sector, but they need to understand holistic view of the business overall and having a strategic knowledge about the business and is also important, as Pak Jackie mentions. Now, maybe the last one from this session, Bulinda, as we all have a time limit today. In regard to all these changes in the curricula for the future, obviously, we need to have a collaborations between industry, professional accounting organizations, and university as educators. What are the expectations or hopes of IAI and maybe plan in the future regarding these collaborations between university and professionals educations?
Thank you, Bu Lulu. Maybe I will start with a commitment first that we have to change. We cannot just do things as usual. We have to change. Because why? Because the skill set and the expertise that is needed by professional accountants is different now. So to be able to still lead in this, because we agree just now that we use one language, right? To talk to the investor, to talk to the stakeholders, we use accounting language. And this is also maybe the reason why accounting profession is given the opportunity to lead in this sustainability or ESG area. Because we want to talk with investor with the same language, right? So that is also the reason why we have to link actually the financial report to the ESG reporting. So by this, it need to promote actually the profession, because now the professions is more widely breadth of career pathway. So if you are an expert in accounting and finance, you need not just to be a CFO like before, but the CFO nowadays have to also overseeing the report of sustainability, which is linked to the financial reporting. So I think this we have to coordinate very closely, profession and the educator. And then we also have to enforce this coordination through the curriculum. Educator and profession bodies have to align the curriculum so the curriculum meet the expectation of the stakeholders. And then the next one is we have to ensure that future accountants have the professional skill. So the skill that is expected to have is not just like now, but we have to find ways to teach students to think integrated. So it's not just one subject by one subject, but how they can link the subject that they have into a comprehensive and integrative thinking. I think this is very important. And this is the most challenging part, if I see from my position, because it's not easy. It's not easy. I know it's a very big challenge for you too, as the head of undergraduate program. I think this is the most challenging part, because if students just know, so I'm so sorry, I'm not saying that financial accounting is no good, but if they only know how to do the journal, but they actually do not know actually what is the basic or the foundation behind that, and link that to the business ecosystem, I think we have to admit that we fail. We fail to be an educator. So I think that is the most challenging part, Lulu. So we have to find ways to link. We have to link one another. Like just now Pak Jumaidi mentioned, organizational behavior. Maybe at that time, I also took that part in my undergraduate. We don't think, maybe we at that time, I thought, what is the use? As an accountant, what is the use of having those subjects, right? But now we realize that it is actually important. Because at the end, how expert are you? You still need to work with people. And if you work with people, then you have to have the knowledge of the behavior of the organization. And it's also the basic actually for the corporate governance that we have talked about. So as an accountant, risk management, corporate governance, we have to link all those together to be able to give the student actually what is expected from them when they graduate from the university. Okay, so we have to integrate IT, sustainability, business process, and at the end, preparing for the report. That is the most challenging one. And then we have also to ensure accountants understand the key differences with IT and sustainability professional. So we do not replace sustainability professional in the company. We have to remember that. There are still sustainability professional inside the company. And we as an accountant, we have to also have this knowledge of sustainability. Yeah, I underline this. Yeah, we are not replacing the sustainability expert in the company. But we as an accountant have to know what are the sustainability issues in that company and how that company handle those issues and embedded it inside the strategy, the business process, business model, And at the end, we are the one who gather the data for the reporting. And the expectation of ISSB is later on to link those report, those issue of sustainability to financial report. So that is the reason why also if we see from the Bruce presentation this morning, it has a scenario analysis, yeah, Bruce? That is the reason why it is put over there as a knowledge that an accountant has to master. Because by having to know or having the knowledge of risks inside the companies, the climate risk, if we are talking about S2, the climate risk, and what is actually the governance structure that is needed, that is the involvement of the board on those sustainability issues. Okay, so don't just think on the reporting itself. We have to think from the operation. That is the starting point, and at the end, the reporting. I think that one that I would like to convey to my fellow educators. Let's think about how to do that in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Linda. And that's actually conclude our panel sessions for this afternoon. We are looking at the attractiveness issue, and we found out that yes, it is a challenge, but it is also opportunities. There are still opportunities for accountants in the future. And as educators, there are quite a lot of initiatives that educators obviously working together with the industries, working together with the professional accounting organizations such as IAI in Indonesia can do to try to face the challenges as well as capturing this opportunity in the future. Thank you so much for the all panelists today, and we conclude for the second session. Thank you.